Hola homies, ¿qué tal? I'm Sierra LaFay and this is my Birdie Wordy manual. You're gonna have to be quiet during the video. And on my community tab, I'd asked you guys to send me some questions about studying abroad, and I'm gonna answer these questions in this video. However, but I'm also gonna make another video where I'm gonna debunk some myths about studying abroad. Email, you have to be quiet. First question comes from Alexis Giselle. Says, do you have to have a specific GPA in order to study abroad? I think that depends on your university. If you're trying to study abroad with your school, I believe that I needed a specific GPA. But if you're trying to study abroad independently, it may not be too much of a concern about your GPA, depending on which university you're trying to apply to. And then your next question was, how do you make friends studying abroad if the people you're around don't speak English? Now, most of the people who are around my age group actually did speak English, so you shouldn't have too much of a problem making friends, and they actually really like to reach out to English native speakers because they want to perfect their English. I would say though, if you're trying to maybe make friends with older people, they may not necessarily be very fluent in English. However, you just kind of figure it out. I lived with a Spanish mother my first year living in Madrid. She spoke no English whatsoever and I barely spoke Spanish, so every day, little by little, we would have to try to figure out what each other was saying, and I would try to use sign language and things until I just really had to learn how to speak Spanish in order to talk to her. Next question comes from Dude22Bro, and they said, how do you choose the right country to study abroad in? I think you just kind of have to look at what your personal goals are in your life. For me, I knew I wanted to speak Spanish when I was a kid.
I believe I can fly.
What's the problem? Man, come here. What's the problem? What's the matter? So for me, I knew I wanted to speak Spanish when I was a kid, and I just carried that throughout my years of school with me. And when I realized that I could study abroad in college, I said that was what I was going to do in order to learn Spanish. But what made me specifically decide Spain is because I also was very interested into fashion. I felt that Europe just had more of a fashion presence where I could really learn a lot. So you have to figure out what your passions are and what your goals that you're trying to obtain from studying abroad, and then you try to find countries that suit whatever your specific needs are. Next question comes from Kimmy DTV, and she said, can you study abroad as a student nurse? I believe so. I don't know too much about the med field, but I bet if you talk to your counselor or your university, they'll definitely be able to give you a clear answer, but I'm pretty sure that you can study abroad as a nurse. And then these last questions come from Chelsea T1314, and she says, how many months in advance would you advise getting a work visa? Is it hard to obtain? Now, yeah, the work visa are pretty difficult to obtain. What I understood about work visas is that you have to already have a job offer in Spain before you can even apply for the work visa. Now, from my experience from both years living in Spain, it was extremely difficult to find a job. Don't want to discourage you if that's one of your goals in life, is to work in Spain. Go after it. It is possible. I was able to do it. It took me 8 months this last year to find a job. And when I got the job, it paid crap. Now, I know there are programs for American students to go teach English over there, and that's how a lot of Americans are able to kind of financially sustain themselves a little bit, but you still have to remember that the pay is going to be really garbage. But I don't really actually know too much about that because I wasn't ever interested in teaching English. However, I do know a channel, her name is Kat Theo, I'll link it down below, and she talks about ways of making money, like studying abroad and things like that, and I believe that she taught English in Madrid, but don't quote me on that. But anyway, I'll link her channel down below if you want more information about maybe going in that route. She may be able to help you a little bit more. The next question is, how did you fund your study abroad? So after I graduated with my bachelor's, I worked a year and I saved a bunch of money. And then I had a GoFundMe. So that money helped a lot with the first chunk of the year. But for the rest of the year, I was heavily relying on donations and the grace of God. And then right when I ran out of money completely and thought I was gonna have to go back home in September, I was able to land the job in corporate. However, if you're going to Spain and you plan on getting a job while you're there, while you're studying, don't count on that. Next question, is it hard to get approved for an apartment in Spain? No, I went to 2 sites mainly to look for my place. One was called Fotocasa.es and the other one was called Idealista.es, and basically they're just people who have apartments that they're trying to rent out rooms for, and You have to be very careful though with anybody that you rent a place from, making sure that you both have a written contract and that everything that's in the contract is what you guys talked about. They'll ask you questions about like why are you here, and if you're studying for more than 6 months, you have to have a residency card, which is called an NEA. And with that NEA, it basically gives them confidence that, you know, you're here in this country legally and that you've already told the government that you are trying to find a house here and that you have enough money to sustain yourself. So they kind of take that as a little bit more security that, you know, they'll get their money each month. And then your next comment was that your main concern was money and it was really stressing you out and you wanted to study abroad for a year and you couldn't imagine yourself living somewhere without having income or scholarships. I thought the same thing because I've always worked while I was in school, and not being able to work and make money was a very hard pill for me to swallow. I would like to say there's a lot of scholarships available for African Americans and minorities who want to study abroad, especially for an extended amount of time. My issue, unfortunately, was the government says that my family makes too much, which we don't. We are middle class. I actually have found out that studying abroad was way cheaper than it was for me to study here. In fact, at Purdue it was about $20,000 a semester for tuition, but when I studied in Madrid, it cost a little under $6,000. I studied at the Harvard of Spain. So there were actually other schools in Spain that were even way cheaper than that. The school actually in Barcelona, the University of Barcelona, was about $3,000 or less a year or a semester, something like that. So it's really not as expensive as you may initially think to study abroad. It's just making sure that you have enough money that'll sustain you for that whole year, because you most likely won't be able to really work in order to pay your rent. What you can do is try to find though people you can tutor. You just have to really ask around. You can see if there's any programs that you can sign up for. I tried to find something, but I didn't really find anything. But I wasn't that aggressive in trying to tutor. I was more aggressive in trying to find some job in a corporate or retail setting. Usually a lot of parents want their kids to learn English, and they love when a native English speaker can teach the kid English. So they'll pay you like, I don't know, 20 euros for an hour or two of tutoring, and they might have you come twice a week, and that can kind of help with groceries, because the cost of living in Spain isn't as costly as it is here in the US. Next question is, what are my views about homestay and why didn't I choose that option? I actually did do a homestay the first time I lived in Madrid. I really liked it for the most part. However, homestay is a lot more expensive than for you to just go ahead and live in an apartment that you're renting with other maybe people around your age. I would say if you do a homestay and making sure that the family really doesn't speak English at all, you'll definitely learn a lot more Spanish if that's your goal. But if you're trying to save money, then it's better if you just try to find an independent place to stay. All right, next question. Any tricks or tips you know about how to make this trip and flight cheaper? So actually, if you fly in the months of January, March, May, and October, you can get some really cheap flights with flying like really nice airlines. I always fly Iberia. I really like Iberia. I did fly British Airways once and I liked it. During those months, you can usually get tickets for about $350-$400 round trip, which is incredible because for the rest of the months during the years, they're usually at least $1,000, $2,000, especially in the summertime round trip. But yeah, just make sure you get your tickets at least 3 months in advance. But you can get some really cheap tickets if you fly during those months. And also look into flying directly into London, and then from London you could take a bus or a train or another flight into the city that you want to go to in Spain, because you can fly around in Europe really cheap. And then you can also look into hostels when you come stay here, which is basically sharing a room with different people from around the world who come to visit the city. I stayed in a hostel and I was terrified at first, but after staying in it, it was not bad at all. You pay about, depending on the hostel, you can pay anywhere from €5, so about $6, to, depending on how nice the hostel is, $20-$30 a night, or €30 a night, which is like basically $40 a night, and you just usually share a room that has multiple beds, and you guys usually share a bathroom. You can just have it all females if you want, or you can have co-ed. But yeah, staying in hostels will save you a lot of money, especially when you're first going out there and you're trying to find your own place to stay. It's actually not too expensive to eat at restaurants, but it's super duper cheap to eat at grocery stores. I would say if you're really trying to save money in Spain though, don't go to Barcelona because it is the most expensive city in Spain. Madrid is a lot cheaper. Everywhere else in Spain, I heard it's even cheaper than Madrid. So is the cost of living similar to the US or cheaper? It's cheaper. Barcelona, I would say, is pretty similar to the US. Next question, how is their government? Have you had any problems with police? I haven't had problems with police. I've learned that they really don't take authority all that seriously because they feel that anybody can be a police officer there. But you can really challenge authority there if you want to. The government is extremely laxed. But there's not too much crime or anything that goes around in Barcelona. There's really just petty thefts, meaning that people just steal your wallet and your phone. But other than that, I hadn't had any issues with the government. The next question is, you heard that Barcelona relies heavily on public transportation. Did I feel safe riding the subway late at night? Is it safe to travel by yourself? I felt safer traveling by myself at 4 a.m. at night than I did walking downtown Chicago in the middle of the day. And in Spain, I've always felt so safe, so at peace. There's usually always somebody out or many people out at night, and when it comes to public transportation, it is extremely easy to figure out. Barcelona, I felt like it was so small that after a while I didn't even use transportation. I literally walked everywhere that I needed to go, even though sometimes that walk would take me 3 or 4 hours. I just really love to walk. But yeah, public transportation is very safe, very easy, and it closes though, I want to say at midnight on weekdays and then like 2 a.m. on the weekends. And if you wanted to go out and party, what people do is they go out to the clubs, they stay at the clubs all night because the clubs usually close at 6-7 a.m. They just wait for the metro to open back up, and then they get on the metro and go back home. Next question is, when you get dropped off at the stops, are the walks really far still from your destination? No, because there's so many different stops that pretty much every stop, as long as you're in the city center, your metro stop will be close to wherever you're trying to go to. Next question is, being at a university still, if you are a social person, will it be easy for you to find out about parties and about things people are having from school? Yeah, but people don't really have house parties. People really just go to clubs because people's homes are way too small for people to be doing pretty much anything, and a lot of people live with their families still. So you basically at school will just hear about which club you guys are going to go to this weekend. Okay, last question is it cheap to travel to other nearby countries, and what is the best way? It's very cheap. Honestly, you can get some really cheap flights to go from country to country. For example, Paris, I can't remember how much it would cost, but Paris is right kind of by Barcelona. I'm gonna say it's about $50 round trip, 50 euros round trip, so about $60 depending on when you go and how early you get your ticket. Yeah, I think flights are the cheapest because the trains sometimes be a little expensive and it even takes longer. You can also take a bus. It's called Alsip. Usually the bus you could do 50, 60 euros too, and you could do a bus overnight, so you could just sleep on the bus and then wake up and you're there. So yeah. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Again, I'll be doing another video where I am debunking some study abroad myths, so be sure to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss that upload. And if you have any more questions, please feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. And until the next video, assalamualaikum. Hey, ciao. Say ciao.
I want to thank me for doing all this hard work.